How do lawyers exploit the burden of proof in trials? Imagine a courtroom as a battlefield where each side fights to convince the judge or jury of their story. The rules of proof are like the weapons they use. The burden of proof is the obligation to show that what they claim is true. It's split into two parts: the burden of production, which means bringing enough evidence to raise an issue, and the burden of persuasion, which is convincing the judge or jury that their claim is more likely true than not. In criminal cases, the prosecution has to prove the defendant is guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That is the highest standard of proof. Defense lawyers look for gaps or weaknesses in this evidence. They might question witnesses' credibility, challenge the evidence's validity, or point out inconsistencies. Their goal is to create doubt that stops the jury from being certain of guilt. If they succeed, the defendant gets acquitted. In civil cases, the standard is lower. The plaintiff must prove their case by a preponderance of the evidence. That means it's more likely than not that their claim is true. Defense lawyers exploit this by casting doubt on the plaintiff's evidence or offering alternative explanations. They might argue the evidence isn't strong enough or that the facts support their client's side instead. Lawyers also take advantage of how the evidential burden can shift during a trial. While one side usually has the overall burden of persuasion, the burden of production can move back and forth. For example, if the plaintiff presents some evidence, the defendant can demand proof on specific points. Skilled lawyers know when to introduce evidence or challenge the other side's proof to keep the advantage. Another trick is using presumptions, legal assumptions that certain facts are true unless someone disproves them. In criminal cases, the presumption of innocence means the prosecution must prove guilt. Defense lawyers reminded the jury that the defendant does not have to prove innocence. Instead, the prosecution must meet its high burden. Lawyers craft their strategies around these rules. They identify exactly what proof is needed for each claim or defense and tailor their evidence accordingly. They cross-examine witnesses to find inconsistencies or weaknesses. They file motions to challenge whether the other side has met their evidential burden, sometimes ending a case early. They also emphasize legal presumptions that favor their client to sway the jury's opinion. Understanding how the burden of proof works helps lawyers shape their courtroom tactics. They manipulate who must prove what, how much proof is enough, and when proof must be presented. This control over legal standards and procedural rules is a key part of convincing the judge or jury. It's a game of strategy, where knowing when and how to challenge or support evidence can make all the difference in winning or losing a case.